Well, good morning and welcome to Stroke of Genius Podcast Survivor Experience. I'm your host, Aaron Alva. Today, I have a guest with me today that is from down under. He's on the other side of the world in Perth, Australia. His name is Duncan Mitchell. We're going to be talking about he has a stroke, and we're going to be talking about that in his experience as stroke survivor. So let's get right into it.
The Stroke of Genius podcast, hosted by brain aneurysm and stroke survivor Aaron Avila, sharing the experiences of survivors and CEOs. This is your destination for inspiration.
Well, good morning, Duncan. Well, it's afternoon there, right? What time is it there?
Well, it's just 2 minutes after midnight. So early Thursday morning, my time, Thursday
Oh,
the 21st.
okay. All right, just a little bit off. But welcome, Duncan. Thank you for being here this morning. I appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thanks, Alan.
Let's get right into it because we only got half an hour together. But introduce yourself, Duncan.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Alan. Yeah. So as Alan said, my name is Duncan Mitchell. I'm originally from Scotland. You might be able to just pick that up in my accent a little bit. But as Alan said, I now live in Perth, Western Australia. I've been here for 12 years. Moved here with IBM. So I was an IT consultant with IBM. And then just when I had my stroke, I was working for the German software company SAP. So I had quite a good career, and was married with 3 children when I had the stroke. Now in the middle of a divorce, and the kids live with their mum.
Well, let's back up just a little bit and get a little more detailed. You said you're an IT person in a pretty great career. What was your life like before you start? Be a little more detailed. What was it like?
Yeah, it was pretty good. As I said, we'd moved down to Australia from Scotland. Uh, I was a successful IT consultant, had been for a number of years, earning a good salary, travelling around Australia and internationally with my work. I was quite a sporty person. I played golf, uh, swam, played a lot of squash, and I was also a age manager for kids at a local surf lifesaving club. So I was doing water safety, doing board rescues, training the kids on surf skills and life saving skills. So I was quite active prior to my stroke.
So tell me, what were you doing well, first of all, did you any warning signs that stroke was going to occur, like headaches or anything?
Not really, no. I mean, I was really fit at the time. As I say, I was playing a lot of squash, playing a lot of sports, was very active. So I had no warning signs, no high blood pressure, anything like that. I didn't smoke, didn't drink excessively. I had a few beers now and again, but I really didn't drink that much. So I was in no real risk group as such. So my stroke was really caused by trauma due to a injury to my neck in a warm up for a squash game where I stretched my neck, and at the time didn't really notice anything. It was only retrospectively when we looked at what I had been doing that we realised that that was probably the main cause. So that was the Thursday night. I was warming up for the squash match and injured my neck. Didn't feel anything at the time. It was only later on and even then didn't really have any pain. But on the Friday, I had started noticing that my vision wasn't right. I've been left with a hemianopia, so I've got no left field of vision. And I did notice that I was struggling to read things properly on the Friday. But I'd just got new glasses and didn't really notice or didn't really attribute the vision issues I was experiencing to a stroke. I just thought it was because I'd had a new set of glasses prescribed. So on the Thursday, I played squash. I drove home from the squash match. I was sick on the Thursday night when I got home, which was unusual. I felt okay, so I wasn't sure why I was sick. I was sick again on Friday morning, so decided to work from home that day because I'd been sick twice. Plus, on the Friday, I'd lined up a couple of calls, international calls, through the day, and had some mandatory training to complete, so didn't go into the office on the Friday. Friday night, I had a call quite late, 10 p.m. my time, with a colleague in the States. He was in Ohio. So it was late in the evening my time to accommodate him. Had that call and felt okay. Went to bed on the Friday night, and then Saturday morning woke up feeling okay. My left arm was a little bit dead, but I just thought I'd been sleeping on it. I guess you always kind of make excuses for these type of things and excuse these things away. So my arm was felt funny, but just like a dead arm, I just thought I'd been sleeping on it through the night. Went to the shower, had a shower, and it wasn't until my wife came back from the gym on Saturday morning she noticed I was a bit wobbly in the shower. I was unsteady on my feet, but I had a pronounced facial droop on the left of my face. And it was then that it was the first time the word stroke had been mentioned. So she said, "You need to get out of the shower. I think you're having a stroke." Sat me on the bed, phoned for the ambulance. They spoke her through some tests, verbally confirmed that it sounded like a stroke, and they were sending out some paramedics. They arrived and took one look at me and confirmed that, yeah, it looked like a stroke, and took me into hospital in the back of an ambulance, lights and sirens, all the way into hospital for various scans to confirm that, yeah, I had a stroke, and the cause was my carotid artery bursting.
Now
So it's
that is what they call you dissected your femoral, your artery in your neck. When you
yeah. Well, they think because I'd been stretching before I went on to play squash, I'd stretched my neck and folded the artery over and trapped it in my vertebrae in my neck. The neurologist the next day said it was like if you'd folded a straw and then tried to put fluid through the straw, the weakness in the integrity of the straw would force it to burst. And he says that's effectively what has happened to your carotid artery. It caused a weakness in the lining of the artery, and that's then burst.
Okay, so you had this incident, but after your neck issue, you had the stroke. Now, in hindsight, how many days did you walk around with the stroke, non confirming you had it?
Well, Thursday night, after the Squash game, I stayed with the other team and we had some drinks and something to eat. And then I drove home on Thursday night. And then all day Friday. So a full 24 hours, probably 36 hours from having the injury to being, I guess, diagnosed and showing symptoms with the facial droop. The facial droop was the big tell that I had a stroke. And because I couldn't see properly, when I looked in the mirror, I couldn't see my left-hand side of my face in the mirror, the reflection. I just couldn't see the left-hand side of my face, which I thought was strange, but again, put it down to having new glasses and never really joined the dots that not having that field of vision properly could potentially be a stroke. So I couldn't self-diagnose that I had a facial droop. It wasn't until my wife saw me that I had this facial droop that she then recognised the fast symptoms and checked my arm, and my arm was still quite weak. My speech was okay. My speech wasn't slurred because it affected the right-hand side of my brain. So I had left side vision loss, left side paralysis. If it had affected the other side of my brain, if it had affected the left-hand side of my brain, that's where the speech processing happens. So my speech wasn't really affected. It was all left-hand side damage.
Right. Now, I think if the tell, I think we as human beings, we deny the thing, we deny the stroke is happening. We tell it, oh, it's done. I slept on my arm, whatever. But we dismiss what's happening. And if you're out there listening, audience, do not dismiss. If you think you have any warning signs of stroke, which is face drooping, do something. Do something. I think fastest face drooping, arm weakness, slurred speech, and time. Get that
Yeah,
fast. Don't do what Duncan did and went for a day or two without going and getting confirmed to a stroke.
exactly. Yeah, I can completely reiterate that time is vital. And the FAST protocol, the face, arm, speech, time, has now been reworked to be fast. So B for balance, E for eyes, and then fast. So I think that's quite an important addition to the awareness signs. If somebody's off balance, if there's any change to their vision in any way or their eyesight, get it checked out, because a false diagnosis doesn't really do any harm, but a non-diagnosis, as you mentioned, the time is important. Every second that's wasted, brain cells are dying, and that can lead to an extended disability, extended recovery period, or in the worst case scenario, death, where it might not have led to that if it had been picked up earlier. So I think the FAST protocol probably saved my life. The facial droop was the big tell, the big giveaway that something abnormal was happening. But I think it's quite important to what they're doing now with the Be Fast, the balance, eyesight, and then the face, arm, speech, time. And time's still the vital factor in all of that. But you're right, everybody excuses it away, or oh, it's this or it could be that. They're just old or whatever. And I think also the symptoms can also look like somebody could be drunk. So if they're off balance, if they're slurring their words, that person could look like they've had a drink. And again, if it's somebody that isn't usually drunk or doesn't drink heavily, and they're showing these symptoms, then you need to think stroke and get it checked out. Because, like I said, a false diagnosis really doesn't hurt anybody, but a failed diagnosis can have very serious repercussions to the patient.
I think that's probably it, Duncan. If I would have to say, look, all the stroke survivors that I interview, I would say 100% of them, you know, convinced themselves they weren't having a stroke when they
Yeah.
really were, meaning they had the tingling in their arm. They even had maybe a little cognitive issue. They have all that signs, but they ignore it. They brush it away. They talk themselves out of it when they
Mhm.
shouldn't do that.
Yeah, and you're right, exactly that. I think many stories just reiterate that fact. It's so easy to excuse it away, excuse the symptoms away for one thing and another. And I didn't really have any pain. Some people talk of a headache or a buzzing. I didn't have any pain in my head at all. I had a numbness in my left arm, like a dead arm that I'd been sleeping on, but no real tingling. Loss of movement because it felt dead, but I still could move my fingers. My dexterity hadn't been affected, so when I could wiggle my fingers and grip things, I thought, well, my left arm's okay, but I couldn't physically move my arm. But I thought it was muscular rather than a stroke.
Yeah, well, tell me now, you went through a lot, and you're very fortunate that you're still here because you waited a day or so after your stroke. And so I'm glad you're here. But what what would you say happened after your stroke to your family and to what's your life like now? What do you do now?
So now I'm effectively unemployed. I'm on income protection through my insurance policy with my superannuation. I was on state disability benefits, but now the superannuation insurance has started to pay out. They've stopped, and living on savings and those income protection payments. I've had numerous jobs since my stroke. So the stroke was in July 2016. I got back to work reasonably quickly, started traveling again, both internationally and throughout Australia. I had a seizure. I've had two post-stroke seizures. So I had a seizure in the August of 2018 caused by scarring on the brain due to the stroke and some dehydration. I'd just been on a flight the night before, and sometime during the night or the next morning, I had a seizure. And that was it's more frightening than a stroke, to be honest. That was terrifying. Was out off work for 2 weeks after this first seizure. The stroke symptoms came back. The weakness in my left side came back. I had to relearn to walk again after the seizure. So I was back in a rehab hospital for a couple of weeks. Got back to work again. And then, so that was August 2018. In April of the 2019, I got made redundant. But they didn't say why. They didn't say it was health related. I guess they couldn't, because it would be unfair dismissal. So I was made redundant. Managed to get back into the workforce through some short-term contract roles. Had a second seizure at work at one of these jobs. Was back in hospital for just one night this time. It was on a Friday afternoon. I basically just fell off my chair at work and landed on the ground. So I was in hospital for the Friday night and the Saturday night, got home on the Sunday and was back at work on the Monday. So bounced back from that second seizure quite quickly. But due to various symptoms like cognitive issues, lack of concentration, fatigue was one of my, and still is one of my main issues. I found it difficult to hold down a full-time job. So the last job I had ended in September last year. So I haven't worked since then because I'm finding it too difficult. So that's why I'm pursuing the income protection through my insurance company, because I find it too difficult to work.
Yeah, I think, I haven't worked since for 12 years, so. Well, I built Stir TV, but I don't work a job by it. I just do. But seizures. I also am diagnosed as an epileptic. So after my stroke, I've had 2 or 3 grand mal seizures and several small seizures. And that is a very seems to be a possible side effect for most people. But I think there was one thing keep coming back to my mind is that human nature to disregard what happened to us health wise. You were having a very major health issue, life threatening. It was really a life threatening health issue, is what you're having. But do you see our nature, your nature at the time was to shake it off and just say nothing happening. But really something very serious was happening.
Yeah. And I think even during rehab, because I was quite fit before the stroke, the physical rehab, I was quite positive about being able to overcome the physical challenges. So managed to stand and walk quite quickly after the stroke. Possibly too quickly because I've injured my knee, because being athletic and being quite sporty and being used to training and gym work, being in the rehab gym wasn't really, it didn't feel out of place. So putting in extra effort to recover physically, I found that as a challenge and something that I thought I could just apply more effort to. I think, touching on that point, I think it's quite important to realize your issues and realize what you've gone through and take it slowly and listen to your body. But not many of us do that. Ironically, when I was in hospital, as I say, I was quite fit before the stroke, and I was lying in hospital, and there was all these buzzers were going off, and the nurses were running around because my resting heart rate was very low, lower than the machines were calibrated to pick up. Apparently, I had the resting heartbeat of an elite athlete. So it set off numerous alarms on the monitoring equipment in hospital, because I was, as I say, I was pretty fit, but that really, it helped me get back on my feet quickly, but potentially too quickly. Again, in hindsight, I was pushing myself too hard to recover, which was, in one way, was good, but longer term, I think you need to appreciate what's happened and take a breath and be kind to yourself and just take it easy and start the recovery process slowly. It's not a race, and you need to give yourself that time to heal.
Yeah, that's kind of like the old saying, stroke survivor. Being a stroke survivor is not a sprint. It is not a race. It is it's something takes time.
Yeah,
Takes you to be patient. So if we're down the last few minutes of the show, but Duncan, I think the hardest thing that people do is push themselves way too hard. They're not patient with themselves in the recovery. Because I am not a big proponent of the word recovery. I feel like you, me, other survivors have to rebuild their life after stroke, not need to recover. So like we have a cold and we wake up not having a cold anymore, is that we're doing recover like that. It's a rebuilding process.
yeah, exactly that. Yeah, and I'm the same. The word recovery indicates that you get back to the stage you were before, but I think it's something that's taken me. That's almost over 6 years now, and I've only recently just accepted the fact that I'm never going to get back to that stage I was at before the stroke, physically or mentally, and
Yeah,
that's a hard lesson to take.
I think it's very hard for most of us to realize that. But I mean, no offense to hospitals out there, but I'm asking you from the CEO of Star TV Media, please stop telling people they're going to recover because it's really misleading. You should be telling them that they're going to have to work hard and going to have to rebuild their life after stroke. Because
Yeah,
don't you agree, Duncan? It's not going to be wake up and not be a stroke survivor. It just,
exactly. Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily have to be negative. I feel I'm a better person after my stroke. I've got more empathy. I've got more awareness of my own limitations and other people's limitations. So I think I'm more accepting of various things now than I was before. So it doesn't always have to be a negative slant on it, but you're right. I think the word recovery indicates or paints a picture in people's minds of you're going to get back to what you were like before. And I don't think that's possible.
but I agree with you, it's kind of misleading and can be frustrating for some. But we're down to close the show. Duncan, if you were going to give any advice to a new stroke survivor out there, what would you tell them?
I guess don't lose hope. Things will improve over time. Things will get better. Just be kind to yourself and accept your limitations and work around what you've been left with. You're still here and you can do a lot with the capacity that you've got left. Just try and make the best of what you've been left with and don't mourn the person you used to be. Don't try and do the things you used to be able to do. Accept your limitations and live within those limitations. And yeah, that's what I would say to myself if I was going back 6 years.
Yeah, I think so. We're to close show with that. Stroke survivor out there listening to the show. First off, smash that like button, share this video, and subscribe to Stroke TV YouTube channel. But don't beat yourself up. Be patient and work with what abilities you have. And Duncan, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it, bro.
Pleasure. Thank you, Alan. All the best, mate. Cheers.
Cheers.
Have a
Bye.
good one. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Cheers. Bye bye.
Me